A renowned athlete, a world record holder in multiple prestigious events, including the World 6-Hour Time Trial Championships and the San Diego Velodrome Hour Record. With a wealth of experience as both a coach and coachee athlete, his journey embodies perseverance and dedication. He translates the principles of coaching, fitness, nutrition, mental fortitude into scuba diving through the pioneering UTD scuba coaching program. His commitment to empowering individuals is not to just obtain a certification, but to truly excel, setting new standards for scuba divers worldwide. His ambitious pursuit in an international hour record in cycling at the age of 70 reflects his unwavering passion and determination. Be ready, be inspired, be transformed. I welcome you, Jeff Seckendorf.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Sounds like an interesting guy. Like
Yeah, man. What are you all about?
Well, I mean, that summed it up. So it could be the world's shortest podcast. Yeah, no, I started, I left the film industry after a 35-year career and started a scuba certification and training agency back in 2008, right? This is about as far away from making movies as I could get. And been running that ever since. And, I'm a coached athlete. I've been on the bike forever and never as a professional, always as a master's athlete. And so now we've taken the concept of coaching endurance athletes and brought it to scuba diving in this very niche, very laser focused market of people who are either divers or want to learn to dive at the highest possible level. So, so I'm running that, doing that, riding my bike, having fun, and leaving for Japan for 3 weeks in about 20 hours. So it's all good.
What's in Japan?
There is a pilgrimage in Japan called the Kamano Kodo. It's down by Kyoto. It's a sister pilgrimage to the Camino de Santiago. And my wife is a nurse practitioner in neurology. Her whole practice is Parkinson's. So for 12 years now, she's every other year been leading an international trek for fundraising for Parkinson's research, but also to take people with Parkinson's on these hikes that seem daunting or seem impossible with Parkinson's, but we see every 2 years we do something crazy like this, and we see people rise to the occasion. And so it's been Kilimanjaro, Mount Everest Base Camp, Machu Picchu, Camino de Santiago, last year in the Dolomites, and this year it's the Kamano Kodo in Japan. So it's really cool. So we have 16 people going, 5 with Parkinson's, and raising money for a stem cell replacement project and all sorts of other really cool stuff. So that's tomorrow. Right now it's today.
Damn, that sounds awesome, man.
No, it's cool. It's cool to be doing another pilgrimage because the Camino de Santiago was amazing. I'm not a very religious person, but, maybe spiritual. But, being on the Camino, which has been walked for 1,000 years by pilgrims, was cool. And now we're going to do it in Asia, where it's been walked since, I think, 1200 AD. So that's a lot of years. Yeah, so that's what tomorrow brings.
Doing amazing things out there. Why did you decide to transition from film? Because I think it's interesting because I'm actually studying film right now. And something I want to bring to the podcasting world is like a cinematic style podcast. And more content also that's more like cinematic. So why did you decide to transition and go all in your fitness journey?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the cinematic podcast thing sounds like a great idea, actually, because the podcast may be sort of reaching terminal velocity, right? So time to shake it up a little bit. I don't know. Sounds like it might be a good idea. But the film industry is crazy, right? I was a director of photography, which on any given movie there's only one. So it's not like there are 20 electricians or 20 grips. So it was tough. And then the thing about the film industry is that most people have a full-time job of looking for work and a part-time job of working. And the working is super fun. But the full-time job of trying to find the next gig, that started to really drive me crazy. So I eventually thought, I got to find something else. I got to get out while the getting's good. And this opportunity just flopped in front of me. It's like I had a scuba instructor who wanted to form a training agency, and I've got the education part. He had the scuba part. And so we did it. And then it became Unified Team Diving. Became rebranded as UTD Scuba Diving, and now it's being rebranded back to Unified Team Diving. I bought it out 5 years ago, so I own it. I own it now with two new partners, a training director and a director of development, and I run it. And that's just a super cool education project, and that's what I was looking for. I mean, it could have been brain surgery or rocket science or car mechanics or shoemaking. I didn't really care. I was just looking for an education project that I could dig into. And scuba happened to come along, and, I was a scuba instructor at that point and diving a lot, and it just seemed like a good fit. Say yes, right? Just something pops up, just say yes, see what happens.
What does scuba diving mean to you?
Well, now it's a business, right? I am one of the few lucky ones in the world who can survive on scuba. But it's recreation. It's fun. It's bringing people, a way to have fun in a very safe way and do this little niche education project. And no, it's cool. I think it's just cool. And diving's fun.
Were you passionate about being a DP more so, or are you now passionate more so about just like an education platform for scuba diving and just educating people?
So that's a good question. So education's been a part of every career and avocation that I've had, right? So 35 years as director of photography. I made big movies, little movies, huge commercials, little commercials, all of that. And the scuba thing was really just about finding a project that stayed in education, and stop having to look for work every day. Now, what I didn't know at the time was when you start a small company with a niche clientele, you're still, you're not looking for work, but you're looking for clients. It's kind of the same. It's always a marketing project, but yeah, no, it was a good transition for me. It was fun. It got me out of the film industry. I'm sort of lightly back in doing, small documentaries, like on the Mount Everest thing. I did an hour-long movie about that team trekking to Mount Everest with people with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And but documentaries are different to me because now I can pick and choose.
Yeah.
I self-fund them. I don't need 40 people and 6 trucks and somebody bringing me espresso. I could just do these things on my own, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It's good, yeah.
Man, I'd love to learn more from you, because I'm like just starting on this film. Like I'm just starting to study film and trying to recreate that and bring more of that into my content and just learning. I love it all. I think it expresses like the creativity side of me.
Yeah, where are you studying?
I'm online because I can't travel to LA, but I'm going to Los Angeles Film School.
Oh, awesome. So, I
Yeah.
taught for years in the film industry
Mm.
at a workshop program called the main. It's called the Main Media Workshops, and for like 25 years I taught up there. And first question everybody would ask in a class would be, "Where should I go to film school?" And my answer was always, "Don't go to film school."
Oh
It was
wow.
always get a job on a film set, learn how to actually make movies from people who make them, and then go get an art history degree.
Mm.
Because that's the thing that informs that commercial art of filmmaking. You know, what did the great masters do? What did the great storytellers do? How do they recreate their vision as sculpture, as painting, as drawing, as any media? And take that rich historical artistic background, because filmmaking is mechanical, right? It's
Mm.
a craft. It's an art, but it's a craft also. So you can learn a craft anyway, and I think
Yeah, on
apprenticing
your
is the
own.
best way to learn a craft. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I told 1,000 students over 25 years. Is don't go to film school.
Man, I think that's like in anything. That's why I think if there's one thing I would add to the education system, it would be that like I would create masters like at an early age. Like you know how we wait to go to college after we generalized in 12 years of school, like the general education. I would start that earlier. Like instead of waiting 12 years to decide that you want to become a nurse and do nursing for 4 years, like I would create a system in which they do that, like kids start that earlier, where they decide to like what avenues they want to take to master earlier. So by the time they do, like let's say if they started at like 6th grade to 12th grade, that's 6 years of like mastering a craft. And then a college would be like an apprenticeship. Like, oh, like now you have 4 years of an apprenticeship, like working directly under somebody.
Mm. I'm not sure I totally agree with that because I think that part of figuring out where you want to go is discovery. So I'm not sure that a 12-year or 11-year-old in 6th grade has had enough experience other than to maybe follow in his or her father's footsteps, right? Which is why we
That's
see
true.
lots of dentist kids become dentists and stuff like that. But I think that,
Yeah.
so I've got a 13-year-old grandson, right? And he, except for wanting to be a famous YouTuber, doesn't really know what he's going to do, right? So, because he hasn't had enough experiences, enough discovery, enough successes, and more importantly, enough failures yet to say, well, okay, that was a failure, but it interests me, or that was a failure, it doesn't interest me, or that was a success, it interests me, or that was a success, it doesn't. And I think that's one of the things our high school system actually does pretty well, is it gives people the ability to fail and
Yeah.
and discover, right? Like, I came from a very musical family, and I was handed a violin at a very early age, and it was
Yeah.
right. I was
Yeah.
just killing cats every day, so that wasn't for me. My brother, on the other hand, turned out to be a super high end, almost session level harmonica player, so he got that, but it took us both years to figure out what our musical interest was and wasn't. So, I mean, I think the apprentice system is cool, but I think it can also lead you down a dead end where you get to be
If you're
age
like
30
not,
or
yeah.
40, and then it's like, well, shit, this isn't what I want to do with my life,
Yeah.
but you're stuck, right? So I think that time of discovery
Is
early
important.
on, yeah, and I think college does that. I think, that's just my opinion. I think that the more time we have to figure out what's fun.
And so
Yeah, just
I
giving.
do think it's important. I think it's hard though, because it's like I don't know. It's hard because I think you could maybe fast forward that um, discovery part, or
Why would you
not,
want to?
or not.
Why would you want to? Isn't that the fun part? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's the fun part, right? It's like, okay, do you want to play football or golf? Do you want to play darts
Yeah.
or chess? And it's like, how do you know? How do you know what you're good at, right?
That's
Or how do you
true.
know that you're not going to come out the back end of that at 18 and
And
hate
then
it
hate it. Yeah.
and find
That's true.
something else and it's too late? I don't know. I think that discovery is the coolest thing. Like with the 12-year-old, we're not pushing him. I mean, he's a grandson, right? So I don't, but I have enough influences. We don't push him to do anything. It's like, what's fun?
Mm.
Well, video games are fun. All right, well, let's take that to the next level and see if it's
Yeah.
still fun, right? When it's hard. Right now, it's
Yeah.
easy because he doesn't have
How can
you know,
Yeah, how
computer
can you
to
monetize
do
on
it.
it?
Right. So when it turns out that it's less fun, then he'll go somewhere else.
Yeah. That's true.
Just what
I
I think.
agree.
I mean, look, I'm coming on 70.
Still
I'm still learning
discovering.
things.
Yeah.
Still every day I'm trying to
Life
figure
is
out new
about
stuff.
discovery. Yeah.
I just, I'm starting another documentary tomorrow, and it ended up being all new camera systems because it needed to be super lightweight this time. So,
Yeah.
I'm learning how to deal with, cameras in 2024 when I was kind of stuck in the 80s. And it's cool, right?
Yeah.
I'm learning a ton. I'm doing a good job at it. So, yeah, no, I just think, keep it. The whole thing is a journey about learning. And the trick to it is, I think, is how do you do that journey about learning and then still help other people with it? Right? How do you
Yeah.
get to that point where you can take what you discover and what you love and then share it in a way that's productive for others, as opposed to keeping it self-centered and self-serving?
That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast, man.
Oh, there you go.
Honestly. And that's funny because it's like we talk about self-discovery, and I didn't decide to do this podcast until last year.
Oh, well, there you go.
And yeah, and I'm about to be 30 this year. This year I turned 30, September. So, yeah,
But
I
I think it's
100%
all
agree.
about the ideas, right? I mean, you're talking about trying to create a cinematic version of this. Well, that's kind of
Yeah.
what YouTube did 100 years ago. So now it's time. Well, let's see if there's a version of this that is that, right? Like rather than a podcast that's just two people sitting here talking on video, which I never thought made any sense, right? I have two podcasts that I run, and I don't do video on any of them. I love this format of radio. I love being able to listen in my car and, while I'm
Yeah,
on
me
a
too.
run or a walk or something like that. So, to me, dropping this on YouTube, who's got time to sit in front of their computer and watch two faces talk?
Well, some people just use YouTube as like a radio too. Like they'll
Right.
just have it on the background. And it's just another marketing tool, being omnipresent, you know.
I guess, but I'm not sure that's what YouTube is good at.
Yeah.
Is background. I mean, I think it's interesting for cool stuff. But, I
Mr.
try to be
Beast.
engaged, right? I try not to multitask too much, and if there's a video in front of me, that's what I'm doing, right? If there's a bicycle
Focused,
under me,
yeah.
that's what I'm doing. If I'm, writing, that's what I'm doing, and I think that's what's killing a lot of, what's happening in the universe today is that everybody tries to multitask.
We have like 5 screens. We have the
Yeah.
TV, we have the phone, we have our
God.
laptop,
And what do you,
iPad.
of all of those things, what are you doing well?
None.
Right?
Yeah.
None. I mean, that's the thing. We joke about a hybrid bicycle being a crappy road bike and a crappy mountain bike, right? But it's sold as a hybrid. It doesn't do anything well. It does everything badly, or mediocrely. So, if you want to ride on the road, get a road bike. If you want to ride on the trails, get a mountain bike.
Yeah.
They're two bikes, and I think that's the same thing, right? If you're going to answer an email, answer the email, not while you're watching a movie and listening to a podcast and having lunch. And that just doesn't make any sense to me.
What advice do you have for people that maybe find it hard to focus?
Yeah, stop. I mean, that's easy, right? Just try it for the thing. I think it's the way you learn anything, right? Learn it in small bites. So just pick an hour and say, okay, so from 11 to 12 in the morning on Tuesday, I'm not going to multitask. I'm going to consciously try to train myself for 30 minutes or 60 minutes to do one thing at a time and move on. And maybe I'll schedule 3 things in that hour, right? I'm going to answer a bunch of emails, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to screw around on YouTube, and I'm going to find something interesting to watch, but that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go have lunch, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to listen to a podcast, watch a movie, read the paper, whatever it is you do. I'm just going to have lunch and be present while I'm eating and enjoy the food and enjoy the process of making it. I think it's just, stop the multitasking thing, because you'll get more done if you don't. It'll all get done better. It'll all be more fun. Yeah, that's what I think. So just stop it.
I think it's more grounding too. Like when you focus on something, you're more present in the moment.
Of course, because you're not distracted by the 50 other things.
Yeah.
Right? Now, so it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, stop it, right? Like I'm doing this podcast with you. I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by 3 weeks of stuff I have to put in backpacks as soon as we're done. But I'm not thinking about that, right? It's just because I could be here futzing with the phone and checking, here's my list for Japan and all this other stuff. It's like I could be dealing with that, but I'm not.
Yeah.
But I think it takes practice, I mean, meditation is a practice. It's not a task. And they call it practice for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to get better at it. So I think you just choose. It's interesting. It's very easy for me to be judgmental and sit here and say, okay, how do you ask me how to stop multitasking, and I say just stop. But that's not fair.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to train people to do things. So I speak to groups on living with purpose. It's one of the niche things I found as a speaker. And when I started doing that talk, it was really interesting because I was very judgmental about it. It's like, all right, Thomas, listen, for you to live with purpose, you have to do A, B, and C. And you've got to do it like this and like this and like this. And I was like booed off the stage, man. It was like, get the hook. Because nobody wanted to hear what they should do.
Yeah.
So I've developed that talk now over the years to a point where when I'm invited to a group to talk about living with purpose, I only talk about me. Right?
Yeah.
I talk about what I do on the bike, what I do in my business, what I do with my family. And a lot of it is about, stopping the multitasking thing that I did for me. And it's the talk stopped being judgmental. I stopped telling people what to do. And I started saying to people, I do this and it works really well for me. Here's how you could emulate this if you want to test it for an hour, right? And see if you like this idea for an hour, right? So for an hour, out of the million hours you're going to live on the planet, for an hour you commit to just this, and you don't look at any other responsibility. We teach meditation like this too. For 5 minutes, there's nothing else you have to do. Just do this. Just live in the moment. Just do this. Everything else will still be there when you get back. And so I think that's what I've learned by doing these talks on living with purpose, is that talking about me is not ego, right? I'm not doing these talks for ego. I'm still doing them because I think it will help others. But at the same time, it helps others by saying, well, I did this, so it's not impossible, right? I'm chasing an hour record on the bike, but I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not elite. I'm just a normal mortal human with a normal mortal physiology.
Yeah.
And I've decided that I can train harder than everybody else, or more consistently. That's actually more important.
Yeah. You can't train for 24 hours straight. It's better to train 1 hour a day for 24 days.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I think that consistency that I've really learned on the bike I don't miss workouts. I have a coach who puts a calendar together. I very rarely miss a workout. It's the consistency that's making me better, and the structure that's making me better. And you're right. You train 24 hours a day, you fall apart in 4 days. So I think that one of the things I've learned on the bike is how to apply the bike to everything else. So I think if you want to live in the moment consistently. Don't make it this celebratory hour once a month that, at 2:00 on the third Tuesday, I'm going to live in the present for an hour. It has to be consistent.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for people to change on a dime, right? People have to change slowly. So I think, what I've learned in these talks on purpose is that, I can show people how I changed slowly, and I can condone changing slowly, because the effectiveness of it is so much better than trying to change quickly, which doesn't stick.
Yeah, it's like setting up, like when you change slowly, you're building a foundation. When you change too fast, you have a tendency to fall back on a default foundation that isn't as stable.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So it's retraining, right? This is what we tell people. If you want to try something different, try it slowly and retrain your habits, retrain yourself, and let go of the stuff that's not serving you. And it doesn't mean let go of the bad stuff, because what got you to this point is not necessarily bad. What it does mean is let go of the stuff that doesn't serve you well, which is hard because some of that's fun, right? Pizza and ice cream is fun.
Beer.
But does it serve you well?
Yeah.
I mean, I go back to my grandson again, right? Fast food is fun for him, but is he getting any nutrition in his diet? Not much. So it's hard to leave fast food because it tastes good, right? It's hard to leave the delicious things and eat salad, But again, I think we train people to do things slowly. So it's like, eat fast food 4 days a week, and then try 3 days a week to integrate it with something healthy, get some nutrients. So, it's all of that whole idea of how do you retrain, and how do you, allow your psyche to learn something new without forgetting everything that's fun, right? Like good stuff doesn't have to be not fun. Salad doesn't have to be not fun.
Yeah, it's retraining your brain to think the hard things are actually fun. I do that all the time with food. Because I work out like 5 days a week, bodybuilding. I started getting into CrossFit and running, and I look forward to the meal afterwards. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make me some good grilled chicken with a little bit of teriyaki sauce and some good steamed veggies that are seasoned well. They're not bland, they're seasoned well, and that stuff is good for you. You really do have to reprogram that part of your mind to not like dread it. Like, oh, I gotta eat my veggies.
But that's the workout thing too, right? I mean, there's a whole thing about process and outcome, right? That, we train for an outcome, right? I'm training for an hour record on the bike. I'm training 5 years now. I'm in the middle of a 5-year program to ride my bike successfully for 1 hour. If I hate the process, that means I'm going to hate 5 years of bicycle training for the potential to be successful for 1 hour. Well, that doesn't work, right? Like writers say this too. Writers, you'll hear them say the best part of writing is having written. Well, those are people who hate the process, right? And it first of all, I think it shows in the work, right? If I hated the training and I only wanted to go kill this 1 hour record, the training would suffer because I wouldn't be interested in it. I'd be phoning it in. I'd be just hitting power numbers and then going home and doing something else. But I do like the training. I do like the adaptation. I do like the feeling it gives me for the rest of the day. I do like, crushing my rides and crushing my workouts. And I'm able to do that for 5 years to try to hit a 1 hour goal. But it's because I don't dislike the process. It's quite sort of the opposite. I actually like the process. I'm getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm learning how to manage this, this very difficult training regime. And, I think that our international hour record for me is like 50% believable still. Maybe I'll hit it, maybe I won't, but it doesn't change the training, right? This whole thing about goals being 50% believable, someone once described it. If your goal is more than 50% believable, if it's a sure thing, it's not really a goal, it's a to-do list. I thought that was a great way to describe
I love
it,
that.
right? Yeah. Your goal becomes a to-do list
I'm
if it's a
just gonna
guarantee.
do it. Yeah.
I'm just going to knock it out. And, if it's 10% believable, well, then it's a pipe dream. But, so, yeah, you got to figure out why you're doing stuff and then enjoy the process it takes to get there.
Where do you find discipline in your life?
On the bike. And that informs everything else. I get up in the morning and I have a calendar of what I'm supposed to do on the bike that day. Today happens to be a massively hard workout. It's 7 by 6 minute VO2 max intervals, full gas. It's really hard. But I'm going to do it because I'm disciplined to do it. But what that also means is I'm leaving for a 3-week trip tomorrow morning and I'm going to pack today. I'm not going to pack it, an hour before I leave for the airport tomorrow, right? So the structure that I've found on the bike in this process of training for all these years, regardless of the goal, I transfer that into the rest of my life, right? I transfer it into how I deal with family, how I deal with work, how I deal with everything. It's like, just have structure. And I live in a world where I like structure. I like knowing what I'm going to do. Some people hate it. Some people want to wake up in the morning and figure it out. I like going to sleep knowing what's on my plate for the next day. It makes me sleep well.
I'm kind of a mix. I have days where I do just want to wing it, but I do find when I have a general idea of what I have going on the next day, I do sleep better.
I mean, it's just a thing, right? It's just a thing. It's like, I know I'm not going to wake up into chaos.
Yeah, especially if you have a lot of stuff going on in life.
Yeah, everybody does, right? My grandkids do. They're 6, 8, and 13. They're busy. They have soccer. They have to wrestle with each other because it drives their parents crazy. They have to complain about food. They have jobs. They just have to do it. So they have structure. I mean, I think that, my 6-year-old grandson, he goes to sleep knowing he's going to give everybody a hard time about breakfast. That's his job in the morning, and he does it really well.
He dreams about it.
Probably. It's like, how am I going to push her buttons today about what I want to eat?
Man, I know that to the full extent. I have 2 6-year-old twin daughters.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, this morning was a fit about not wearing the shirt that she wanted to wear. So
yeah. This is what I was saying earlier, right? There's no logic circuits yet. People don't know what they want yet.
Yeah.
Right? They have to figure it out slowly.
What do you think helps us figure it out slowly?
Failure, right? Bounce back from failure. That didn't work, but don't let it inform your life. And try something else, right? One window closes, 10 doors fly open, that whole deal. So, yeah, try something else. I mean, nothing that we do, I shouldn't say that, I can't talk about we. Nothing that I do in my life is so completely, massively critical, right? I mean, I do recreation, right? I teach people how to scuba dive and teach instructors how to teach people to scuba dive. I ride my bike to learn about how to talk about purpose. So, yeah, just pick yourself up, try something else. Didn't work, pivot. You know, it's like my favorite word now, pivot. Okay, that didn't work. Let's pivot to something else. You know, it's not that this was a failure, it just didn't work. You know, and that could be something as small as, oh God, I have indigestion from that horrible food I ate last night, or I didn't sleep well because I had too much wine. Or, you know, it could be, oh my God, this job I've had for 22 years is no longer working. Let's pivot.
Hmm.
You know, it works on both sides, big and little. But, you know, what you don't want to do is be miserable for 22 years in a job that you're afraid to leave.
Hmm.
So I think fear is a lot of it. Fear of change, fear of lack of security, fear of running out of money, fear of all that stuff. But I also think if you get your core stuff dialed, right, food and shelter, that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else can fall into place.
Yeah, if you can, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at right now. I have the basics taken care of, but I'm definitely not abundant financially yet. And what do you think makes people sure of themselves? Let's say they keep pivoting, they pivot, and they pivot back into themselves, looking at themselves in the mirror. How can they be sure of themselves?
I think small successes go a long way. I think success doesn't have to be, oh God, I just landed this cool job. I'm president of a company now. I think small successes go really, really far. Like, I want to eat better, so I'm going to start today. This is the other thing with the grandkid, right? I've been trying to get him not to eat anything he can't pronounce. So if there's an ingredient he can't pronounce, don't eat that food.
That's actually really smart, yeah.
It's a simple way to do it, right? So I think that if you can have small successes, and this is what I was saying about, you know, be present for an hour, you can train yourself to have bigger successes, right? But success is a state of mind. So you have to be able to say, okay, this worked really well today, right? I know it'll work really well tomorrow. So I don't have to worry about it tomorrow because it was good today, it'll be good tomorrow, right? This failed today, whatever it is, right? Now I have to say, okay, well, tomorrow I have to do something else because I don't want a second day of failure. So I think just watch for and accept the little tiny successes and let them grow. Let that feeling of being successful grow. That whole thing that just sounds like bullshit, that do what you love and the money will follow, it's actually true. It's actually true.
You think so?
Right? I totally think so. I just think it doesn't always manifest in like 2 days.
The exact way you imagined it.
The method or the time frame is never going to be what you thought. But the concept works, right? If you hate your job and you're only doing it for a paycheck, eventually you'll lose it. Right? If you love your job but you're not making enough money, eventually you'll find something else you love that pays better. It's how the universe works. It's a mindset, right? You just have to love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, you've got to find something you love and do it. And then the money tends to follow. And exactly what you said. It may not follow the way you expect it, right? It may be, you know, some freelance job falls in your lap that you can do in the middle of the night for a couple of weeks, and there's a big pile of cash you didn't expect to have, right? I mean, it's weird the way it shows up, but if you hate everything, if you constantly complain about everything, then you're just going to, you know, what you say and what you think expands, right? Yeah. I'll never find a parking space here. It's always too busy. Well, you're never going to find a freaking parking space.
You manifest it. That's literally manifestation, yeah.
And all it is, it's just you convince yourself, and if you believe that thoughts are real, that you just turn into your thoughts, that, you know, if your thoughts are super negative, well, then guess what? So I really believe that, you know, the whole thing about do what you love and the money will follow is a state of mind, right? I've been broke at parts of my life, but I've never been poor, ever, not a single day, right? I've had periods when I was younger where I had no money, but I never had the consciousness of being poor. I had the pocketbook of being broke, And I figured out how to deal with that. But I never sat around and said, oh God, I'm so poor. Right? That's a state of mind. Broke is a state of bank account. That's super easy to fix. Poor is a state of mind. That's really hard to fix.
How do you think people can fix that?
Training. I think training. I think you find someone to talk to who has been down the road of success, and someone who will talk to you about how to be successful without ego. I mean, it's very easy to be
That's so
successful
hard.
in your own mind and then transfer that to others. It's really hard. You know, I'm very successful at the things I do, right? It's very hard for me to transfer that to somebody else without just bragging, because, you know, that's not my interest. You know, my interest is helping someone do the hard work it takes to get to a point in their life where they're feeling successful.
That's one thing that I always remind myself of. I never want to be the guy that reaches a certain point of success in the eyes of others and let my ego speak for it. I actually had a perfect example of this from a podcaster that I listen to and YouTuber that I listen to that came into financial success a couple years ago, and I haven't listened to him in a couple years, and then I just randomly was like, oh, let me check him out now, see how he's been. Man, it was just like all ego. It's like, yeah, I do this, I put in the hard work, like, I'm not being a bitch, whatever, I'm not being a little P word. And he was really hard about it, but then it was like really, man, it was just not an ounce of humbleness in that. I'm like,
yeah, there's a balance to that. That's what I figured out in talking on purpose, right? It's like I knew when those first talks went badly that I had to talk about me. But I also knew I had to do it in a way that was not self-effacing in any way, right? Not saying I'm not good enough or what I'm doing is just not a big deal, because it is a big deal to me. But how do you frame that in a way that people can say, oh, well, he did this and he did it without ego and he did it without making everybody else around him crazy. He didn't do it without struggle, but maybe I can take some of that and maybe I can try one thing that he said that I can hear. If you speak from a position of ego, then you just create a block and nobody will hear you. They might listen, but they won't hear anything, right?
That's exactly what happened. I was listening and I was like, wait, what is going on right now?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. The Scuba thing is all about education, right? And I've studied a lot of it, of what is education. And, you know, we look at, you know, Socrates and that whole system of how, you know, education is fundamentally creating a change in behavior in your students. And that's fine. But what we've come to recently in the whole Scuba thing, as we're teaching Scuba, is that we can create a change in behavior in our students, but it has to stick. Right? There has to be a retention. So now when I teach instructors, which is often, instead of talking about creating a change in behavior in your students, I'm talking about creating a change in behavior in your students that will stick. You know, what are the benefits of the change that they're seeing that will cause them to say, oh, I think I should remember this because this is important. So retention has become a much more important part of my education process for people than the change in behavior. And we know how to create retention by creating benefits within the training. It's like we're not just showing you how to do a skill. We're showing you how to do a skill, and we're not stopping until you understand the benefits of learning that skill. And then, you know, instead of learning how to, like in Scuba, take your mask off and put it back on, you know, which is a checkbox skill that everybody has to do. We're all about, why do you need to know this? When are you going to get into
Yeah.
this situation? When did, I turned around once and my student had caught her mask on a piece of kelp and it had come off.
Mm.
And she had
Oh,
like
right.
two dives. But,
Oh, wow.
I turned around and she's got the thing off and she's putting it back on and she's holding still and she's clearing the mask. And she just, because when we trained her to do that skill, we gave her, real life scenarios where this skill could be super important, and she retained the teaching, right? So that
Mm.
is a huge part of what we're trying to do as people change. So to go back a couple of questions ago, if you're looking for a way to learn how to do some of this stuff and you find a teacher who can give you the new skill set, but also can make you understand why you're learning it. Some
Yeah.
psychologists are really good at this and some are really bad, right? I work with a
Yeah.
sports psychologist who's really good at this, right? We talk about how to change behavior, and then we talk about why and what the results of that change can be. And that's a really smart person, right?
What does your daily, like, most productive day look like?
This, do one thing at a time, do it well, move on.
Hmm.
That's all.
What do you envision Jeff Seckendorf after you kill that world record? Where do you see yourself after that?
Well, that's a 70 to 74-year-old hour record, so that gives me 4 years to train for the next one, 75 plus. There is a 105-year-old hour record.
Really?
Yeah, some guy at 105 years old rode 12 miles on a track.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
I love it.
Is that goal 50% believable for me? I don't know. If I don't get hit by a truck, maybe.
Yeah, right. You never know.
I mean, I think that goals to me are a stepping stone. They're not an end unto themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I started this thing because I thought it would be good for me. Then the next version of that was I thought it would get me speaking gigs
Hmm.
once I'm successful, because I look at all these successful athletes getting speaking gigs, and then I realized
Yeah.
I didn't need I didn't need the outcome to actually be able to talk about the process. In some ways, it's better not to
Mm,
have it, right? Because it doesn't
true.
matter. And I have 5 years to actually attack this thing. I can do it anytime between 70 and 74. So it really doesn't matter what the outcome is, although, I'm goal oriented. But yeah, no, I just think, that's great. Okay. I set an hour record. That's awesome. I mean, I have an hour record at the local track, right? I have the 6-hour time trial record in my category and age group. Great. I just signed up in November to go back and do it again, try to beat it. So yeah, just keep going. I mean, it's all fun, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to stop having
You
fun. I'm
gotta
not going to,
have
like,
fun while you're doing it.
finish an hour record and put my bikes away. That doesn't make any sense. Finish an hour record and buy more bikes. I don't know.
I love that, man. Do you have anything you want to cover before we move on?
Yeah, no, I think it's yeah, I think there's a lot of little stuff about me that I got to talk about here, and it's fun.
I do have one more question before we move on. You've traveled all over the world. What is your favorite place?
Home.
Where is home to you?
I live San Diego. I live in the most amazing place in the world.
Oh, I used
I
to live
remember.
there.
Yeah, no, San Diego is incredible. I was walking down the street in Tuscany on a little beach town
Hmm.
with friends, and it was beautiful, and the sun was setting, and we were on our way to some little restaurant for pizza, and it was just like the perfect thing. And one of my students said to me, "I bet you never want to go home seeing this." And I was like, "You have no idea where I live." You know, I
I
love
miss San
traveling. I
Diego,
love where I'm
man.
going, but
Yeah.
I have a phenomenal home. We've created this very amazing, peaceful space. So
What
yeah,
part of
home.
San Diego?
We're in Sorrento Valley, about halfway between Del Mar and La Jolla. A
Okay,
mile or
so
so
North
inland.
San Diego.
Yeah, yeah. I'm about a mile inland from the ocean.
Nice. I used to live on Coronado Island.
Oh yeah, no, that's cool.
Very expensive, but very peaceful. I would walk
Yeah,
outside and just the ocean's right there,
yeah.
and the people were, for the most part, most of the people were just chill. They just walk their dog in the sunrise and
Oh,
feel the
that's great.
coastal breeze, and the weather is just always not too hot, not too cold. I miss it, man. I miss it. I was stationed over there uh, with the Navy for 8.5 years.
Oh my God, really? Wow.
So
Yeah,
now
no,
I'm
it's
in
a great.
Austin, Texas. It's like I'm surrounded by land,
Yeah,
and it
it's
sucks.
the opposite. It's the
And it
opposite.
gets too hot. Like the summer is already getting 90s right now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's already, and the summer's gonna be. Last year we had 45 plus days of triple digit weather.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
But
I miss it.
choose your poison. Choose your place. Choose your poison.
Well, where should we begin? Question. Share something you've never told anyone. I hope you never find out about the time that I.
Pass.
You wouldn't pass on that one?
Pass.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep. Well, which one do you want to pass on? Do you want to pass on the blue card or the.
Uh, let's pass on the blue one.
Okay. Another random one. Okay, this is a good one. Share something from your teenage point of view, and then about
I hope you never find out about the time I.
from your
Um,
teenage.
yeah, no. I tried to be a successful folk singer, banjo player, and I hope no one ever finds the recording of that.
Was it that bad?
Yeah. Yeah, it was horrible.
That's
One
funny.
and done.
All right, Jeff, my final questions. The first question is, what is your biggest regret?
Oh, I don't live in regret, Thomas. That is not, I can't even turn up a thought about that, right? Regret's just, it's a killer. It's like, there are things I would have liked to have done, but then I've done other things to say, well, I didn't do that, so I'll do this,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah, no, I don't, no, I mean, that's a psyche killer, living in regret. So that's just
Yeah.
not part of that's not part of my current program at all.
Yeah. Same here. I don't want to. You heard of deathbed regrets, like people on their deathbed and saying all the things that they wish they would have done in their lives, but it's too late.
I mean, it's like the girlfriend who got away, but who wants that? I have an amazing wife, right? It's
Yeah.
like I don't go down anywhere near those thoughts.
I love it. My next question is, who or what has made the biggest impact in your life so far that makes you who you are today?
I used to live next door to Leonard Cohen when I lived in LA, and I think his music and poetry has probably had one of the biggest influences on me,
Really?
and the fact that I got to hang out with him a little bit.
What is one of his? What is one of your favorite poems by him? Do you know?
I have a book here that, where is it? Since we're doing video.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the day we moved out of that house, and I'm not starstruck, right? I've worked with actors my whole life, but I've been carrying this book around since high school, right? Selected poems 1956 to 1968. And as we were packing our truck and he was out hanging out, it was like, hey, I don't do this often, but would you sign a book for me? And, 1,000 years later, Leonard Cohen.
Wow.
So I just opened this to anything, right? St. Catherine Street. I have 2 bars of soap, Celebration, and you know the famous songs, right? Suzanne and Alleluia and all of that. So, yeah, I think his works, his writings, and the fact that I got to know him a bit, yeah, big influence.
Is he still alive or no?
No, died about 3 or 4 years ago.
That's awesome. See, I want to be like that. That's something I want to be. Not a poem, but somebody that will be remembered as some sort of inspiration to others.
Start now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're doing, right? Podcast,
Trying.
filmmaking. Yeah.
My next question is, what is one lesson you had to learn the hard way?
Discipline. It's easy to pass. No, I don't want to do that. It's hard. So the bike taught me that. Having a great coach who's not just a cheerleader, but who's actually in it for my best good. Yeah. Discipline.
Discipline is... The military taught me that, and then when I got out, I lost a little bit of it. But something that's always stuck with me in regards to discipline is just working out. I've always, at least at a bare minimum, 1 to 2 times a week. I've never missed a week. And like,
yeah, that's it, right? I don't miss workouts on the bike. I think it just, but then I take the bike workouts and I apply them to everything else, right?
Yeah.
I make my work responsibilities happen because I understand the ramifications of not. And that's from the bike. It's all from the bike.
What would you want to experience in life, or what would you do in life if you had all the time and all the money in the world?
Hour record at 105.
We'll have to have another podcast when you...
In what?
Is that 20 years?
35 years.
That's 35 years.
Right? I'm 70. I'm almost 70, right? 80, 90, 100. Yeah, 35 years.
Well, let's schedule it.
All right, I get it on
You
the
said you
books.
like to... You said you like to schedule stuff.
I like structure.
No, I mean, honestly, I want to be podcasting for that long. And
yeah, why not?
Yeah, one of my visions and goals for podcasting, like I said, the cinematic one, there's new technology that's coming out for VR podcasts. Like, if you had, like, imagine I had a cinematic podcast and then a camera that is VR adaptable that somebody could put on and feel like they're the third wheel of the conversation.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? So when, in the 80s, when I was full on filmmaking and home video cameras became higher quality and less expensive over the course of about a year.
Yeah.
1987, something like that. You could buy a decent video camera for, at the time, $1,000. And so daddies were buying kids cameras and kids were saying, now I'm a filmmaker. And they had everything working for them. Camera, friends, editing equipment, everything except the story. Everything except a script. Right? So that's when we started getting really, really bad content hitting the market. Because
in the 80s
technology was, the 80s, late 80s. Technology was driving filmmaking as opposed to story.
Yeah.
And if you look at, you can go back in YouTube that far. If you look at the work that was coming out, and even more of the mainstream movies where, low budget became a thing, it was everything except a script.
Yeah.
So, you need the story first. That's what we're doing, right? In the media, we're telling stories. If you're just telling, stuff with a camera, well, what's the point, right? You're not helping anybody.
Yeah, that's why so many books get adapted to film, right?
Yeah, and remakes and all this other stuff, right? Let's have something original.
Mm. Well, Jeff, my last question is not really a question. Is there any last thing you'd like to share with the audience that you think would resonate?
Yeah, if it doesn't work, pivot. We talked about that a lot. Just pivot. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Just pivot. Do something else. Don't go down a rabbit hole for years of hating everything.
When you say that, I imagine me pivoting, like I was saying, pivoting back into myself, or like I bump into myself, I pivot so much.
Yeah, well, there you go. But, you've had experiences, right? You're in the military, you're running a podcast, you got kids, you got lots of stuff. So, find something that you love to do and the money will follow.
I love
Simple. Make it simple. If you make it complicated, it's too hard for everybody.
Facts. Jeff, where could people go follow you? What do you want to promote?
Yeah, the instituteofpurpose.org. Listen to how dozens and dozens of my friends and acquaintances live with purpose. See if you can find the common thread. It's not that hard.
It's not that. You got this, guys. Whoever's listening, you got this. And as always, everyone, stay curious. Keep going. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.